The Necronomicast podcast has been around for more than a decade and has featured some of the most well-known people in the paranormal field and the horror genre. Topics include everything from cryptids to hauntings to true crime and beyond. Brian Corey took over main host duties in 2020, and he's brought a wonderfully inquisitive mind to the microphone. He doesn't just interview people, he embarks on conversations and encourages his guests to share more about themselves on a personal level. He makes the journey into darkness seem safe and, above all, interesting. Please welcome Brian Corey of the Necronomicast.
Wow, that's a great intro.
Hey, Brian, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you guys? So nice to meet you guys, and what a pleasure to be on your show.
Well, we absolutely adore your podcast, and it's very cool to be able to put a face to the voice, I guess you could say.
Likewise.
Well, I touched a little bit on the Necronomicast there, but can you tell the listeners a little bit more about it, how it got started and all that good stuff?
Oh, yeah, you bet. When podcasting started taking hold around the country, one of the earlier pioneers of it in the Midwest and Omaha specifically was a guy named Wayne Brecky, and him and his friend Tim Welch wanted to have a podcast about horror movies and their love of them, and kind of welcome people from the horror industry onto the show to talk about things like that. And that was how the Necronomicast was born. Tim and Wayne hosted that for a number of years, and then Wayne kind of rebooted it without Tim has a million things that he does, and so Tim and Wayne kind of parted ways, friendship intact, and they had a bunch of their friends come on to be guest hosts, and then I was a guest, and things clicked, and then I was I was a host, a co-host, producer, and then a couple years ago, I was looking to do what I'm doing now on the Necronomicast. So I was going to start my own podcast, and Wayne and his wife and the other guys, we just kind of decided that I would just take it over and rebrand it as my own thing, and because it had a nice history and didn't need to start from scratch. It was just kind of a continuation of what I kind of started introducing to listeners like 2014, 15, 16. So.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And I wanted to ask you, this is something that we often ask some of our interviewees. What got you interested in the quote unquote weird stuff?
Oh, man.
When did it start?
When did it start? Here's a funny thing about me, and longtime listeners of my show know this about me, but my parents were a lot older than other kids' parents. My dad was 70 when I was born, and my mom was 40. So I was kind of an old soul, and I watched a lot of old different kind of TV shows and different movies, and had different books and things around the house. It's kind of like living with grandma and grandpa kind of, but they were your mom and dad, and I was an only child. So there was always true crime books, and there were shows on TV all the time. My parents watched In Search Of. I'm sure everybody says they got.
But of course,
we're that age too. Yes,
right, sure. So but how I remember seeing the Patterson Gimlin film for the first time and falling in love with cryptids, and then I was scared by ghosts, and I'd read books and pamphlets and different things from historical places that we'd go on vacation, just always reading about the Old West, and ghosts were always part of the history of where we went on vacation, and it's just so fascinating to me. So I love the old-fashioned ghost story, and I also like all these new kind of philosophies and theories that are coming out about the paranormal. It's just really just a strange set of interests that I have, but it's
not strange to us, not at all.
No,
or our listeners.
I know, but a lot of my friends that aren't into that as much, they're just like, Brian, you just seem so normal. I'm like, well, I think it's pretty normal. So anyway, long story short.
When it comes to a ghost, we love to ask people this question too. And you can define it however you want. I mean, what do you think a ghost is? Theories on that.
Oh boy. If you would have asked me 2 years ago what I thought a ghost was, 5 years ago, all these answers would have been different. Today, And pendulum will probably swing with my opinion, but right now I think about the billions of people that have lived on the planet throughout history, and how unique everybody is, and how different everybody is, and how special each life is. That there's probably a billion definitions of what a ghost is, and there's probably a billion different kinds of hauntings. I don't think it's always a sad soul that's can't move on, but there's probably a lot of them that are. I think right now I'm into reading lots of stuff by like Lloyd Auerbach, and a great book I'm reading right now by Deborah Blum called Ghost Hunters. It explores the psychical side of what a ghost could be, and not so much like a physical manifestation out in front of your face, but like how we're all in tune with each other psychically, and how we don't know how the brain communicates to other human beings. So a ghost could be a traditional kind of spirit that persists after bodily death, or a ghost could be something to me like psychic, like a psychic link, and our brains are just kind of the antenna or the receiver of some kind of higher consciousness. And I just don't know. It's just a sort of wonderful mystery about what the afterlife is, or what it could be. And I think it's only hampered by our preconceived notions of what it could be. So does that answer any kind of question at all?
Yeah, and I think you're very similar to where we come at this from. If people would have asked me years ago, the standard, well, it's the spirit of a deceased person.
Sure.
It's pretty much the standard thing, I thought. And now that we've done our own investigations, talked to so many different people, had all kinds of our own experiences, read about all these different kinds of experiences, talking about Lloyd Auerbach and some of his theories and stuff.
Man,
I don't think we'll ever know. Even when we get there, I think the afterlife is a process of learning things as well. Because it seems to me, you've done some investigations, is that right?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
You have different levels of experiences in different locations. And sometimes I think that's based on how much whatever it is you're interacting with, whether it's psychical energy or a spirit or some other whatever, cryptid maybe, interdimensional being, they learn as they go along too and have different abilities. It's like when you go into a place that nobody's ever investigated before, maybe those spirits don't know how to turn on a flashlight, and so it takes them a while to do it, whereas you can go into some place else that's been investigated thousands of times and it's like stuff happens like this.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I think a lot of times it's just going to be ever evolving. Your opinions are going to change, your ideas are going to change. It just is going to be based upon experience, and that experience can be different 5 different times going into the same location.
Oh, Kelly, that's so true.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And Diane, you made some great points there too. One thing I shy away from, and I'm sure you and your guests and maybe a lot of your listeners will share this, but definitive statements about the paranormal and stuff, I just can't really get behind. Like when I see entertainment on television, or when people say at a live event or something like, well, this is a ghost, this is a poltergeist, this is a demon, this is that, and I'm like, well, we can't
How do you know?
We can't recreate this evidence in any way. It's just an experience, and it just happens, and we don't know why, and that's part of the mystery of it. And I believe in God, and a lot of people will say, well, how can you believe in God or how does that all work? And I'm like, this paranormal stuff that we're just so drawn to, aliens, cryptids, everything, all the folklore, all the ghostly stuff. It's all part of this wonderful universe that we're all sharing together, and we don't have the keys to it. And you know what I mean? Like, I don't have the answers, and I don't need to have the answers. I just need to go out and really, instead of looking for evidence, I'm looking for an experience. I'm looking for something that can make me draw me into the mystery of what this all is together. That's what I'm looking for.
I don't remember which episode it was that I was listening to, but you made a reference, and we'll mention this sometimes too, where you'll have these people who claim to be paranormal experts. And I always laugh anytime somebody's in the paranormal field and says that they're an expert. Now, you may have more experience, but I always laugh when people say they're experts because, like you said, there's just really no definitive. It's just like we end every single episode with, is this location haunted? That's for you to decide. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you this is for sure. The experiences I had were definitely some kind of haunting or something like that because we don't really know in the end.
Sure, somebody could be like historically, like an expert on history or an expert on the folklore, or because they've done their research and they've done their reading and they've put in the time. Sure, you can be an expert in that regard, but it, like I said, you can't recreate a ghostly experience in a lab. You can't be that kind of expert. You can be well read. You can be, have a certain degree of philosophy that's informed. But an expert, yeah, I shy away from that. So it's fun though. Isn't this fun?
It's way fun.
Oh, we love it.
And we'd love to hear about any experiences that you've had, because I think the other thing that's hard is a lot of people want you to scientifically prove something. And like you said, repeating this stuff with a scientific method is really impossible. And some of our most profound experiences have been personal. It's like, I saw something, I felt something, and I can't share that with anybody because it was personal.
Sure. I'll give you a couple paranormal experiences that I think I've had. And like I said, I think I've had them. There might be explanations that I haven't considered, or I'm just not intelligent enough to figure out the correlation between a certain string of events, but things that were weird to me, and I listened to your podcast, like I listened to your Fort Omaha episode, and fantastic. You guys did your research. And so,
Thank you.
And props for mentioning the Monster Club.
We were going to ask if you'd been there because, oh my God,
yeah.
It's my favorite restaurant. So I'm so jealous you live there.
It's so amazing. She has, I've bought her so many t-shirts. She has a different Monster Club t-shirt for every day of the week, plus some doubles because she doesn't want to wear them out. And well, I mean, it's true. I'm not lying. And then a couple different versions of their beer mugs, their pint glass, and what's the other one? Tall one. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know
when
the details.
When in Omaha, visit the Monster Club down there in the historic old market. Now, not too far from the Monster Club, there is there's a couple theaters. And when I say theater, I don't mean a movie house. I mean like a place where the symphony might perform, or an opera might perform, or a stage production might be held. We have a couple of those downtown Omaha, not too far from the Monster Club. And during COVID, during the pandemic, they were not scheduling any events there. They still had their staff intact, and they were kind of working on doing online things, but the building itself was closed. So I thought, hey, what a great time to see if I can do an investigation there. And so I called them up, and they're like, sure, we've got some people here on staff that have had these experiences too. And I'm like, fantastic. So I got the run of this place, and I'll tell you off the air what it is. So I got the run of the place. I had it all the way from the basement all the way up to the very, very tip top of this historic building. Every nook and cranny. They just told me be careful on the catwalk. Or not the catwalk. What's it called? Up above where they...
A catwalk.
Thank you. They just said be careful up there. Like, don't fall. Because there's nobody here, in the house to, get you help. So I'm like, all right, fine. No problem. So I avoided that part. But I went to this one place where they told me that a door happens to close by itself, and a lot of people have witnessed it. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So I go into this room, and the door's propped open. It's a heavy door, no modern electrical kind of switches or anything to make the door open or close, nothing like that. There was no magnetic door stopper, anything like that. It was just a big, heavy, old school door and a flip down doorstop. So I'm hanging out in this room, and frankly, the dirty secret about paranormal investigating is that it's boring. It's very boring sometimes.
Quite true.
Right. So I'm like looking at my phone. I had two phones and a camera and a digital recorder. Two phones so I can use one to record with, and one just because I needed a phone. So I'm kind of scrolling through my phone, just kind of talking and recording and listening, and the door shuts. I'm like, oh wow, that's crazy. I wasn't scared or anything because I'm like, what does this mean? So I go to the door. And I have this on video. So I open up the door, I push the door stopper down. And the door stop, the floor also has a grip tape. Like if you ever rode a skateboard,
Yep.
Like you stand on that so you don't slide off the wood.
Yep.
Okay, there's grip tape on the floor, stuck to the floor. Doorstop has more friction than usual to hold it in place. So I push the doorstop down, and I'm pulling, like I'm yanking on this door. I'm pulling as hard as hell as I can. Pull, pull, pull. I'm satisfied that the door is not going to move. So I'm like, well, maybe somebody just kind of propped it open willy-nilly days ago because there's nobody here. I sit in the room for another 20 minutes, and just when I'm just about ready to start packing it up, I hear, which is the doorstop going up, and the door starts shutting and closing.
Wow.
Yeah, so then I'm kind of freaked out.
Oh, no, you weren't freaked out. He made you more curious.
Yeah, the video, like the angle of the camera isn't so great. Like I don't have it out on YouTube for people to pick apart because I don't need validation of my haunting experience. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
I know I didn't get the entire portion of the door in shot. I didn't frame it like a director of photography. I just had my camera up. So I didn't put it up there because people could say, oh, you had a buddy hanging out in there. Or you pulled a string or something. So that's why it's not photographed well, but that totally freaked me out. And so later that day, I was in the house, like sitting, like I was watching a show, and I felt something brush up against me. That's what it felt like. I don't know if it was, maybe my shirt was caught in the seat, or you know what I mean? I'm not trying to be too definitive there, but what it felt like was somebody like brushing past me, like to get to the aisle to get out. So that's what it kind of felt like. Not like a tap on the shoulder. I wasn't punched or scratched or nothing like that. It just felt like somebody brushed up against me, like as they're walking out after the end of the play. So
Sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then here's another one. It's not so much it's not ghostly, but this is where I'm getting to with like paranormal and like psychical kind of stuff. I'm a musician in town, and I was playing my trumpet at a church. And during the church service, we were playing a song called Behold the Lamb, and it's by a guy named Marty Willett. Marty Willett is an Omaha native. He was a longtime church musician. He's retired. He lives in South or North Carolina now. Anyway, hadn't seen him in years. We're playing this song that he wrote. And I've known him for decades. I've known him forever. And while I'm playing the song, I'm thinking like, oh, I wonder how Marty's doing. My wife is in the congregation. She hears the song and she's like, oh, I wonder how Marty's doing. At that exact moment, or during the performance of that song at that church service, I got an email from Marty, time-stamped. The church service is, recorded and that's online. So I got an email from him asking me, he's like, hey, I'm in town. Let's go have lunch. And so ghostly, no. Coincidence, don't believe in them. I think it's just connected in some way, but it's so weird that psychically I'm thinking about Marty while I'm playing his music. My wife is listening to the song. She's thinking like, well, I wonder how Marty's doing. At that moment, Marty is thinking about me enough to email me and ask me to go to lunch in a couple of weeks when he's in town or he's in town. So, is that paranormal as a television show would describe it? Probably not. But it's just one of those things that if you got your eyes open and you're just, the psychic connectiveness of all of us, that's what's so exciting to me as I crack open all these 100-year-old books. That
Very powerful.
Yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think of something like that? That psychical connection, it's weird, right?
Yeah, we talk about synchronicity all the time on our podcast because it happens all the time. We'll have a listener who's like, oh, I was listening to this episode and I just happened to be driving right past that, or something else about the episode clicks with them. Or, the synchronicity happens all the time. And I agree with you. I don't think there is such a thing as coincidences. Everything happens for some kind of a reason. It may just be that you guys were thinking so powerfully about him that somehow he got a message in his head and was like, I need to let them know I'm in town and get together.
Yeah. And when they talk about right brain and left brain stuff, the fact that I was performing music, which is a little bit left brain, but it's a lot of right brain.
Yeah.
The creativeness of it. My wife in the congregation is hearing this music being performed, and that conjures up thoughts of Marty, so yeah, it's weird.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And I saved the email
stuff like that.
because the email's like, it was sent at 6:11. It's 5:30 mass. And then at 41, 42 minutes, we're playing that song on the video, the streaming video that they put on YouTube. The church did. So, yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's wild. So, I mean, that's the latest thing. You know, I mean, things happen all the time. You just got to keep your eyes open to weird and strange experiences.
Yeah, we have that happen just between the two of us all the time. But yeah, we're definitely big believers in that. And a lot of times you have no explanation. It's just a matter of, I think it's the power of the mind.
Yeah. And if that can happen to living people, who's to say that, you know, after you experience bodily death, that, you know, that spirit, that conscious goes and lives and expressed is in a mystery that we don't know yet until that day happens, you know.
Exactly. So since you first started hosting solo, have you had a favorite guest on your podcast?
Yeah.
Without putting you too much on the spot?
I'm really trying to have like a wide variety of guests, and I'm trying to skew it, especially this season. I don't know if you went through my guest list. I'm trying to skew it heavily female because in the past there hasn't been a lot of female voices on my show. So I'm really trying on that. So with that, I had a great conversation with Dr. Catherine Ramsland lately. She had the true crime expert. We were talking about her book about BTK, the killer from Raider from Wichita. I really, really enjoyed talking to her. I thought that was phenomenal. Leslie Rule, the daughter of Anne Rule, the famous crime writer. Anne's a great writer in her own right, and she wrote a book called Tangled Web, which the crime took place in Omaha and Council Bluffs. So that was really so much fun, like connecting with her and picking her brain about stuff. Earlier I mentioned the Patterson Gimlin film, the Bigfoot film. I had Bob Gimlin on, and I think he's 94 now, so he's like 91 when I interviewed him. So that you know, I was like shaking, you know, like this is, and he was like, oh shucks, and he's like the old rancher, oh shucks, you know, and hey, how you doing? You know, he's so warm and such a gentleman that like my fear and my nervousness just like melted away. And then there's a guy, John E.L. Tenney, was on my show early last year, and he's going to be a part of the Necronomicast live event that's coming up in October. I just like his philosophy on a lot of this paranormal stuff, and he's just so helpful, like to podcasters and people just starting out. He's just willing to talk to anybody, and I really appreciate that about him too. The humanness of the interaction and just sharing stories and having conversations, you know. That's what I like about this podcast medium. It's so conversational rather than a lot of talk radio and stuff is so confrontational, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So like, you know, you guys are in Florida right now. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. And here I am in Omaha, and we're having this great conversation. We've never met before. And, you know, we're just having a great time just talking. And that's what I love about the podcast revolution, and it's just giving people a voice to talk and a way to share ideas. You know, I don't know if I ever would have had the chance to talk to you guys, but here we are, we're chatting. I love it.
We could have met at the Monster Club and we didn't even know it.
Their chocolate shakes are out of this world.
Well, I know we'll be back there.
Did you go up to the record store upstairs?
I don't think that we got to. We were getting ready to go investigate. Was it Villisca at that time? Or were we on the way to Squirrel Cage?
Squirrel Cage jail.
So we had other things that we had to do, but we had some listeners meet up, and we all enjoyed a really awesome meal. And we got to take in, you know, the downstairs part, and we made some purchases.
Yeah. They got this life size.
We didn't make it up there.
They just released or just unleashed or unveiled. They have a new statue there. It's a life-size Christopher Lee as Dracula statue, and it's gorgeous. It's amazing.
We saw the post of it, I think, on Facebook.
I think so.
We follow them, of course.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's sick. It's just so cool. You know, I had to, as soon as I saw that, I took my youngest son down there, and I'm like, "You're stand up there next to Dracula. We're gonna take your picture." So. Yeah, you know, if you guys come back to Omaha, Council Bluffs area, Lincoln, I want to hook you guys up. There's some great paranormal investigators and historians here. A friend of mine, excuse me, Jamie Nestrel. She operates the Midwest Paranormal History Tours that are here, and she does like Fort Omaha. She does haunted forests. She does downtown stuff. She's fantastic. I want to hook you guys up with her, and yeah, it'd be great to meet you guys, have a shake at the Monster Club, and go hang out the squirrel cage or something.
Yeah, that'd be a blast. We definitely plan on reinvestigating Squirrel Cage too, because we had an amazing experience there.
What
Well,
happened there?
What
lots of
didn't
stuff.
happen? You don't have enough time right,
Right.
now, but we could definitely chat at another time.
Well, what I was going to say is, when you think about Omaha, Nebraska, and I mean, we are from Florida, and I grew up in Denver. So when you think of Omaha, it's like, oh, what's going on there? But when it comes to the paranormal, that area has got a lot of stuff. Like we mentioned, the squirrel cage, there's the Villisca Axe Murder House, and then Malvern Manor. And I know that you did a show there, like recorded in Malvern Manor. And it was so much fun to listen to that, because not only was it a great guest that you had, but every so often you guys would go, did you hear that? And you could hear that you both would like be turning around. And it happened like 3 or 4 times. And you could hear the sound in the background. And it's like, they're the only 2 people in this building.
Yeah, that place is not a joke. It's and the guy that runs the place, Josh Hurd.
He's great.
He's great, and he's totally honest, and you know what I mean. You're not walking into a place that you have to worry about the integrity of an investigation. I mean, he presents it, the history of the place accurately and confidently, and thanks for the kind words about that episode, because that was a strange one to put together, because like I had to go to, Ron lives in another town, so I had to go pick Ron up because he had car trouble and his wife had the good car, something like that. And then we drove to Malvern, and then then we purposely were in the dark Shadow Man hallway with no lights on, and we just propped up 2 chairs, and if you listen on your headphones, like you can hear the reverb of the room that we're in, the hallway. And yeah, there was a couple times where you just hear like a, you turn your head and like,
Yep.
Okay, you heard that too. All right, well, let's continue to talk while like I'm kind of focusing on him and then looking over here to see if I spot the Shadow Man in the Shadow Man hallway.
Yeah, we had some interesting experiences there too. We just kind of did the quick tour. Josh takes you through 15 minutes. Here's this, here's this. And we weren't even expecting it. And he was just like, now you guys could stay as long as you want and investigate a little bit if you want to. So we're like, oh, cool. And
yeah, he turned us loose, but unfortunately we didn't have a lot of time. It was kind of a last minute impromptu run over to check it out. We had some listeners with us and went through and did a real small investigation.
the thing that's great about it, though, is that they have found the history behind some of the stories there. And it's a very profound place to hang out, because a lot of these other asylums and sanatoriums and such, they don't have like the stories that are behind a lot of the quote unquote hauntings that are going on there. Whereas with Malvern Manor, it seems like they have a lot more information on that. And it's just an interesting group of people that have decided, or whatever it is, hanging out together in that location.
Yeah, I make it there about 2 or 3 times a year, and like during my kids' spring break, I took them to go check it out. And then we got giant ice cream cones at the cafe that's right in front of the place. But yeah, there's a great book that they put together, and I'm sure if you go to the Malvern Manor website, you can get it there. But it's called We Are Malvern Manor, and it's a history of the place. But they also went through and documented like every person that passed away there. So if your listeners aren't familiar with that history, read up on the Malvern Manor and the different versions of that building. It was multi-use facility for from a hotel all the way to a nursing home kind of a place, just over the course of its history. And they did some painstaking work, like to put together everybody that passed away there, and they went through the real records. I mean, it's not folklore or like funny history. I mean, here's this person's name, and we can document all this stuff, and it's really quite interesting. It's great. Yeah, it's a place with a lot of integrity. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I agree. So you dip a little bit into the horror genre on your podcast. So since we talk about a lot of haunted locations, are there any specific haunted house type movies that are your favorites?
Oh, sure. Everybody says The Changeling, and that's a classic. I have to give a shout out to my friend Doug who hit me to that. I saw it a long time ago, and then he was such a big fan of it that I bought it again and watched it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is fantastic. I forgot how good it was. 1981's A Ghost Story with Fred Astaire, and do you guys remember that one?
Yes.
Yeah, that's such an old school creep show. That's great. Of course, Poltergeist. The Conjuring movies are great. They're a lot of fun. And then the one that Casey Affleck made, I think it's called just Ghost Story from like 2017. I always thought
I haven't seen that one yet.
Ooh, it's super interesting. It's super interesting.
We'll have to check it out.
We'll have to rewatch it. I think that we did actually see it. I liked it. Well, maybe not. Maybe I saw it. She didn't.
Talk about like psychical connections in this movie and ghosts that time travel. You know, I mean, it's pretty heavy. And it's so simple of a story too. So yeah, those are my favorites right now. But I grew up like with the monster movies. Like Jaws is my all-time favorite movie. And so coming up July 4th weekend, I dragged the kids down to the basement. I'm like, you guys are going to watch Jaws with me. So that happens every year around here. So yeah, Jaws is my favorite horror movie, and my favorite franchise though has to be Friday the 13th. So
okay. I lean more towards the Halloween, but that's fine.
Okay. No disrespect.
No duking it out, you two.
I mean, the horror genre is just a lot of fun because it's like anything goes. And I think it has really gained a lot of popularity and respect nowadays than what it used to have.
Oh, sure. And what a great time. Like, I really came of age in the 80s. I was born in 74. So when I was 10 in 84, Ghostbusters came out and Friday the 13th, the final chapter. And I remember being a little kid and watching Friday the 13th part 3 over the course of a month because I was so scared when it was on HBO. Like I was so scared. I went downstairs and watched like 10 minutes of it in the middle of the night and then had to go up, so it took me a whole month to watch it. So
yeah,
I just think like the 80s and were such a great time for horror because of the great franchises and the all the advancements that were made in practical special effects with like Tom Savini and Kevin Yeager and guys like Stan Winston. So yeah, Necronomicast, it's movies and true crime and paranormal, and I even if it doesn't fit in there, I find it a way to justify it for the listeners.
Very cool.
It's my show. I'll do what I want.
Exactly.
That's right.
That's the way it goes, right?
Right.
Brian, thank you so much for joining us. Let the listeners know a little bit more about your event that's coming up here in October and where they can find out more about you and the podcast.
Oh boy, thanks for that. Thanks for reminding me. So I decided, let's go crazy this year, and sometimes there's not a lot of like paranormal events around here in the Midwest, so I decided to make my own. So the Necronomicast proudly presents Historic Haunted Heartland. It's going to be a night of true paranormal stories told by, there's that word again, experts in the field. Jamie Nestrel, who I mentioned earlier, she's going to give the first kind of talk about the haunted history of Omaha and Nebraska. After her will be Johnny Hauser, who's the longtime caretaker of the Villisca Axe Murder House. He's going to talk about the history of the town, the murders, and the haunting that's happened after that. And then after a brief intermission, because there's a cash bar, everybody, John E. L. Tenney is going to come in from Michigan, and he's going to deliver one of his signature weird lectures. And if you haven't heard John Tenney talk, he's just a master storyteller. I don't demean him when I say there's a lot of stand-up comedy in it, because the guy's just funny. He knows how to work a room, and his stories are incredible, and he knows how to craft a story. So I'm super excited about flying him in for this. So we're going to have the local stories, the regional stories, and then kind of the weird of our world with John. So that's happening Saturday, October 8th at the Benson Theater in Omaha. Tickets, if you're in the Midwest and you want to come, tickets will be on sale this summer. Necronomicast.com. There's a tab on there about the live event. So I'm super excited about that. Hopefully I don't lose my shirt on it. I think we'll sell out at the Benson Theater. I'm feeling very confident about that. I have a lot of interest, and it's just going to be a lot of fun in October. In Omaha, the weather's beautiful in October. It's just those beautiful October nights, and it should be a fun, spooky event.
I was going to ask, because that is north, and north gets a little bit chilly. So
this one, I don't know. She needs a parka when it's like 65.
You can roast in Omaha in October too. I mean, there's been 90-degree days for sure. I mean, but I'm telling you right now, I'm just thinking, I'm using my psychic powers. It's going to be a beautiful night, and everybody should come down and check out the historic haunted Heartland here at the Benson Theater in Omaha.
Very cool.
And where can they find your podcast?
You can find it at Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And I ask your listeners if they would be so kind as if checking out the Necronomicast, if they would leave a review at iTunes or at Spotify. You can do that now. Leave some stars, whatever how many stars you can afford, whatever you want to give it on a review. But yeah, Apple Podcast and Spotify, every place you go. Got a fledgling little YouTube channel where I put all the episodes and some fun stuff once in a while. But yeah, everywhere you listen to History Goes Bump, these paranormal conversations, you can find the Necronomicast. And I really just, I think we talked about this maybe before we started rolling tape, but I'm just so appreciative when people find the show and listen to it and tell me that they enjoy it or they really found something interesting out of it. So it's just, I just appreciate people's generosity of time and listening to the show and giving it a chance.
Well, thanks again, Brian, for joining us, and good luck to your son in his game.
Yeah, good luck at the baseball game.
I'm looking forward to it. Play ball.
And thank you so much for joining us today. We certainly appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.